Hello everybody, welcome into today's edition of One Nation Weather. We've been posting a lot of shorts lately for you here, and now we've got a video for you here to give you information about the plain storms and the tropical rain in your One Nation weather forecasts for America. So let's go ahead and get right on into that. Tuesday evening setup looks like this. You can see we've had some of those showers and storms. Some of these have been going severe into portions of western Texas. We'll continue to see that throughout the evening. The other system of concern moves into portions of Alabama, Georgia, and Florida for us here, which is where we've got that rainfall coming out of this low pressure system. That area is going to track eventually over the water, gain a little bit of tropical characteristics, and then move northward, but right now no development is expected at this time. Notice this cold frontal boundary working its way through portions of Canada for us here. I point that out because it's going to be important because it'll produce some rainfall into the northeast for the day tomorrow. On your Wednesday, we've got to look at that in a minute. You can see some of that rainfall back into portions of the west. Now, here's that Tuesday severe weather outlook that we have for Texas. You can see the Panhandle all the way on down into central areas just west of Fort Worth into the Abilene area. Down closer to San Antonio, that's where this risk kind of ends. Dallas, you're on the outskirts of that risk as well, but really the Panhandle is going to be the primary area for the day today, especially for the severe hail outlook. That dashed line area, that's where you could see some of that hail around ping pong ball, 1.5 inch diameter, all the way on up to tennis ball sized hail around 2.5 inches in diameter. So this is going to be some very large hail that comes, not in every storm, but in certainly some storms. There is at least that possibility in that hatched area that there could be that significant hail. So here's a look at what the pivotal weather is forecasting as we go to around 9 p.m. Central Time with these storms. You can see some of those cells moving on southward towards the Abilene area, certainly producing some of that larger hail. Now, as we work our way into the Wednesday time frame for us here, you can see we've got a lot of energy back into the west, and this is really going to play a crucial part in our forecast as we go into our Wednesday with that troughing boundary setting up. We're going to see some of these showers and storms around it and ahead of it for you here. So Oklahoma, portions of Kansas, even over into far western Missouri, Arkansas, and Louisiana, we'll see some of this storm coverage develop. Also notice there's that kind of Clipart-like system, right, where we'd see some of that snowfall in the wintertime producing some of that rainfall, maybe some brief mixed precipitation in northern Maine as we go into your Wednesday for you here. Some of that rain pushing on down to the I-95 corridor as the day goes on. Also, again, some of that rain around the southeast coast and Florida as well. Here's your Wednesday high temperatures. We'll see those temperatures flowing on up into the 80s, even into Montana. We'll see some 80s and temperatures near 100 to near 90 in the southern plains. Temperatures all the way from places like Philadelphia all the way back around to, say, Atlanta, Georgia, Macon, Georgia. We'll see those temperatures around 80. Florida seeing some temperatures in the mid and upper 80s. Now it's time to focus in on two areas of concern, the plain storms and the southeast tropical rain. Let's start with your Wednesday setup. For the southern plains for you here, you can see portions of Colorado, Kansas, Oklahoma Panhandle, and the Texas Panhandle getting in on more storms as we go into Wednesday. And this is going to really last into the nighttime hours. So it will not be raining all day, which is why our flood threat is at least limited. But every afternoon we have the chance for some of these showers and storms, and it's a pretty good chance, especially into the Texas Panhandle. Here we go Thursday afternoon. More of these storms, even to the Mexico border, some of those storms getting going. Notice we kind of get some new energy shifting back further west on Friday afternoon with some of these cells developing. Here we go again, Saturday, right? It's almost like I'm showing the same image to you, just distorted all over and over again. Very similar pattern setting on up with some of that storm coverage also going up further north. Now, here's how much rain is being anticipated by our Weather Prediction Center. That is the NOAA Weather Prediction Center for you here. This is what's looking on. From that, it's looking like, in general, most spots, an inch or two of rain. But in some of these red areas, what you don't see between the 2.2s and the 2.4s, we could see some isolated areas pick up 3 to 4, maybe even 5 inches of rain, which could cause some localized flooding. We also have some heavy rainfall coming up in some of these storms that'll get going into Montana. Those storms could produce an inch to 2 inches of rain at times, which is why from Nevada all the way on up into Montana, we have the marginal flood risk, that level 1 out of 4. We have another level 1 out of 4 that goes from portions of southeast Wyoming all the way back to Texas and Oklahoma. Notice some rainfall could produce some flooding into Maine as well as into Florida. Now here's your Wednesday afternoon severe risk. Let's cover that severe coverage better for you here into the plains. Level 1 risk, some of this activity that could cause the flooding from Nevada to Montana, some of that could go severe. We'll also see some severe activity coming out of southeast Colorado through Texas as well, another area in Florida that we'll cover in just a minute. You can see around 6 p.m. we're starting to see these storms light up the radar for you here into the Texas and Oklahoma panhandles, but it's really around 8 p.m. when we start to see some of those redder cells, some of these isolated cells. Tornadoes are not the main threats with any of the storms the next few days, but certainly some very large hail. Could once again see some 1 to 2 inch, maybe even 3 inch hail as we go into your Wednesday evening, so we'll keep an eye on that. Notice the storms look to be more short-lived the further north you go, where there's less energy. We could see some damaging wind potential as we go into the overnight hours of Wednesday night going into Thursday for us here. Notice how we get that kind of backward C shape to this, a Boeing segment, moving south and eastward over areas that have just been affected by the storms. Here we're going into the northwest for us. Here we get some of these showers and storms to develop around 4 p.m. This is in mountain time for here, not central time as we go into the afternoon. Notice some of those showers and storms continuing, and those could briefly produce some gusty winds, hail, maybe a brief tornado. Now here's what the European model wants to say with that storm energy as we go into Thursday. That goes all the way on up to Canada, but you can just see it, how it comes along that line for here, that troughing boundary. All of these areas at least having some limited to medium storm energy to work with. Notice the wind energy above our heads as we go into this weekend. That continues into portions of the Dakotas all the way through Texas. More wind energy going into the southeast for us here, and now we want to shift to that area of concern, which is where we've got some of those heavier storms expected on your Wednesday afternoon around the Lake Okeechobee area for us here. We've got the Tampa area being affected, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, the Space Coast, all of these areas getting in on some of this heavier rain. Maybe some brief severe weather out of this from Gainesville, Florida, all the way on down to the Keys. That's where we've got that risk, that level 1 risk, that some of these storms briefly produce some gusty winds, maybe some small to medium-sized hail as well. As we go into Thursday, most of that rain pushes off the coast, but that's going to allow us to gather as we go into our Friday. Look at that. Now, I don't know if the rain's going to be that heavy right along the South Carolina coast as we go into Friday afternoon and evening, but certainly some very heavy rain. Notice mainly an east side loaded system for us here, but really the wrath of the system of 1,003 millibars. It's going to curl all the way back around into the Gulf, which is going to produce some of that rainfall. Notice how this moves forward into the Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina area for us here. So the coastlines will be impacted earlier Saturday, pushing further north and west as the day goes on. Notice as we go into Saturday, the system will kind of spin through Kentucky, then twirl back around for us here, leaving some of that remnant energy to produce some brief showers and storms all the way through next week. Some of that energy still lingering around into some locations. Now here's how much rain is anticipated. Look at these yellow and red and orange areas offshore. Many of those spots will be picking up anywhere from around half a foot to a foot of rain. That doesn't look to translate onto shore, but still some of these areas right along the immediate coastline of North Carolina, as well as back into Florida, we could see some 2 to 4 inch totals, even some 1 inch totals going up towards the Greenville, South Carolina area, Asheville, North Carolina. That is also around in the Florida Panhandle, portions of South Alabama, some inch totals at the early stages of this system. So all of these areas need to keep an eye out. But for now, let's go ahead and get into what I want you to advertise with this channel. 92% of you are not subscribed, so go ahead and do that. Get more of those forecasts for America from One Nation Weather. Subscribe, hit the like button, and here are the credits. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Don't forget to like and subscribe.